and welcome to Town Talk. I'm Eric Lewis.
And I'm Andrew LeBlanc, the Deputy Mayor for the town of Riverview.
We're here with our third episode. As you can see, our setup is a little different this time. The southeast region of the province is currently in the orange phase of COVID-19 recovery, so we're lacking our usual expertise of producer Dennis Mazerol. I'm literally using cheap lamps that are older than I am and my iPhone to make this happen on my end.
What's funny though is that or at least our region is probably going to go to the yellow phase tomorrow. So if we had planned our recording schedule better, we could just do this normally. But here we are.
Here we are. So yeah.
So thanks again for joining us, everyone. Hopefully last week you saw a video that we had released. We started our Community Spotlight series, and we were certainly honored to have Rob Taylor join us from Five Bridges Bar and Grill. We would encourage you to go and check that video out where he explains some of the history of the restaurant and some of the cool things they've done to adapt through COVID-19 as well. And so, of course, we're looking for a lot more feedback. If you have any businesses or organizations that you think would be great for us to highlight, we would love to hear from you and love to hear your suggestions as well.
Today we're talking about another major project in the town, one that you've probably heard rumblings about but might not know many details, the Riverview Recreation Complex. This idea, at least, dates back about a decade. I was a reporter and started reporting on this particular topic when it was just an idea being sort of bounced around by council of the day. Andrew, can you tell us a bit about the history of that? I know it sort of started as an idea. There was a bit of residential or consultation with residents. So tell us a bit about that and how things got rolling. Sure.
So this was really, I think, one of the first big projects that we took on dating back to 2012 when I was first elected. When Mayor Siemens was first elected as mayor, a committee was struck to start exploring building, I guess at the time we called it the Wellness Center, and it's gone through many different iterations, and now it's called the Riverview Recreation Complex. So a committee was put together to explore what that would look like for the town of Riverview, do a feasibility study, and look at all the steps that would have to go into actually building something like this for our residents, and also to evaluate what the need is. So we worked with Trace Planning and Design. They were brought in as a consulting firm to talk to the user groups and find out what the needs in the community were, to assess what some of the other resources were around our community. Obviously, we want our center to stand out, and we don't want to duplicate things necessarily. So they did a ton of research around what the needs in the community were, what the process would be to actually to look into even putting something like this together. We needed to know if it was a possibility and if it was something that could actually be sustainable for us. So a lot of work went into the back end of making this happen. And so ever since, that committee has been going through different stages. It started as just a preliminary planning committee, and then it went into there was a steering committee, and now we have a fundraising committee that's in place. And so it's evolved a lot since 2012. We're really excited to finally get this thing going and make it happen for Riverview.
Recreation complex could mean anything, but the idea is I think it'll include an Olympic-sized pool, a walking track of some sort, an indoor turf field. Is that right?
Yeah. So we've done our initial assessment on everything. I don't think all of the specifics in terms of the design are finished, but we've done if you see me looking, I've got my notes here to guide me, so everybody knows what I'm looking at here. So we've done the technical and the functional program. So right now what we have going into the center, there's an 8-lane 25-meter pool. There's a leisure pool that's going to go with that. There's a turf field house, an artificial turf field house. A year-round walking track that'll be indoors, which will be great. A multi-purpose community space, and there's going to be some office space that goes in there as well. So the idea behind it is that we want this building to be multi-generational. We want it to be accessible by all residents. We know that there's a lot of wants. There's a lot of things that people want to go into a facility like this. And we just have to start small. I say small, it's a $32 million project, but it's but we know we can't do everything in one shot. So after analyzing what all the needs and the wants were for the community, this is what we have after the functional and technical design or program having been completed. So it's a good start on what's going to go in there, and I think the next phase is for the schematics to be drawn up.
There was talk, I think, and this is many years ago, about another ice surface. Obviously, we have the 2 ice surfaces at the Byron Dobson Arena. Mm-hmm. There was talk of potentially including 1 or 2 in this building, but you're saying that's not happening?
No, it's not. Now, I never sat on the committee that was doing some of the planning, so I certainly can't speak on their behalf into some of the discussions that they have. Just like with all of these episodes, they do not represent council, and this is just you and I talking. But yeah. To my understanding is that that was something that was looked at. Of course, we know that's a big desire for residents in the town to have a third ice surface. My understanding of that is that it just, from a feasibility study perspective, it didn't make sense to put the third ice surface into this particular facility. We've made some decent upgrades to the Byron Dobson Arena. And so we've really extended the lifespan of that particular building, and there's some really good work that's happened there to make sure that facility is very operational. There's a little bit more work that has to go into it to keep it up and running. I think one of the challenges, if I remember correctly in the discussion, was about how often that building sits vacant. Because if you look at it, there are peak times, and there's a scramble to get in there and get ice time between all the different user groups that want to get in there. But really what happens throughout the day is that it sits empty. And so to create a third ice surface to really just serve during peak times and to sit empty during the day, the sustainability of something like that isn't really, it didn't seem too feasible for us at the time, I don't think, going into these conversations. So it just didn't seem like something we'd be able to keep up. And I guess to me, I don't know, is that's the best use of taxpayer dollars right now. Mm-hmm. Just because we could put the work into the Byron Dobson to make sure that building is extended in its lifespan a little bit longer. And then we could use the Riverview Recreation Complex to address some of the other needs that are in the community. And there's certainly no doubt that there is a need during peak times for more ice time. We can't address everything in one shot, and this is what we have out of the gate.
You mentioned the cost a couple times, and you said $32 million is sort of is that the budget now? Is that what's expected, or?
Yeah, so the budget for this project, we are looking at around 32. I guess it's 32.6 million that we're looking at, but it really falls into a price range. So they call this a Class D budget estimate, and so that gives us a price range with about a 25% plus or minus on what the cost could come in. So this facility I'm seeing here is about 5,691 square meters. So the range would be 24 million to 40 million. So we're estimating it's going to come in at about 32 million for that particular project, at least based on the notes that I'm seeing here. So mm-hmm. It is, and you'll see that if you look into the capital plan, that's the figure that we're using in the 10-year capital plan for the budget on this. So now, the hope, obviously, is that Riverview is not going to foot the bill for that entire $32 million. Obviously, the municipality will have to pay a portion of it, but we're seeking federal and provincial funding support for this project as well. We're looking for $10 million from each of those government levels to contribute. Obviously, there's a precedent there. We're looking to apply for funds through it's the Canada Infrastructure Program. And so we're looking to access some funding through that. There's a precedent there. Lots of other communities have accessed funding through this program as well. We know even some other communities close to home here have been able to tap into funding. So we would certainly be looking for a provincial and a federal contribution to this project. It's a worthwhile project. It's going to enhance the quality of life for residents. It's going to bring people into the town. There's so many positives for our municipality by putting this project together, and that's exactly what those kinds of programs are for, to be able to support projects like these. So I guess speculating, I think we'll have to see how COVID has impacted the other levels of government and their ability to put money out and invest in some of these projects. But we're optimistic that we can make that happen, and we would certainly encourage both the federal and the provincial governments to make sure that those programs are funded and operational, so that municipalities like ours can continue to tap into those funding resources.
That's a huge amount of money. That's got to be the biggest projects the town has embarked on in a long time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think it's probably the single biggest item in the capital plan. So as a resident, I guess, how do you feel about that? I mean, there's been lots of conversation around, is that too much money to be spending on a project? What do residents feel? I know I've heard from some that maybe they're not the target demographic for this kind of building and they won't be using it. So they might say, well, no, I don't think the town should be putting money into this project. And then, of course, the user groups that have been consulted, and anybody who might have an interest in accessing the resources at the recreation complex would certainly be in favor of it. So where do you see this being a benefit as a taxpayer in this town? Are we is this in line with where you'd see your taxpayer dollars being spent?
Well, gee, it's a ton of money. It's a huge amount of money. And I'm not I'm probably not the target user group, although perhaps my daughter might be one day. I love the idea of a new pool. Obviously, that's a fun family activity and certainly a great way of exercising and whatnot. But I mean, 32 million or thereabouts coming out of taxpayer dollars is a lot. But I also think, I mean, the pool in the high school. I don't know the age of it, but it's been around a long time. Those don't last forever. And there are some things the town could use, the indoor walking track and the turf field indoors and things like that too. So I do see value in it. And I think if it can be done in a way that is, I guess, sustainable and also allows money to continue to take care of regular maintenance things, roads and other needs, I don't have a problem with it. If you told me that, tomorrow your taxes are going to go up 10% to pay for this thing, I might feel differently. But I assume there is a plan in place to sort of make it a reasonable expense.
Your taxes specifically are going to go up. No one else's.
No, that's
yeah. I'm
wonderful.
sorry.
I really don't feel great about this anymore.
Does that change your answer now?
Yeah, a little bit. No, I think we're a growing town, and there are wants and needs. And the town, I think, and you can probably speak to this more, has prided itself for a long time on its recreation, the programs and the facilities and all that. So maybe this is the next evolution of that. So I guess if the town's not going to go, deep into the red to make this happen, if it can be done in a reasonable way, then I think it makes sense, and I think it would be a great thing. And also I recognize that even though I'm not an athletic type, these sorts of facilities are hubs in a community. They're things that people want to go to, and people might come from out of Riverview too to access things there. So I think that'll build upon Riverview's reputation as a good community. So, and it's, as I understand, the plan is to put it beside the Mill Creek Nature Park. Is that?
Yeah, that's right.
So that pairing an indoor and an outdoor recreation facility right beside one another makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think that was, again, I can't speak on behalf of all of council, but for me, that was my rationale for selecting that location, is because it fits so well with being at the entrance of Mill Creek. We're trying to build this recreation hub. I mean, everybody knows that recreation is a major part of the town of Riverview. We've been putting a lot of focus on sustainability in this town as well, and so I think it fits into the larger strategic plan for the town really, really well. I think it means... Sorry, go ahead.
I was just asked if there were other locations considered, and what were they?
Yeah, we had been talking about space still on Bridgedale Boulevard, but towards the west end of that road, down by closer to Gunningsville Boulevard. So the original plan for it was that we would start Bridgedale Boulevard and basically just create a stub street, do enough of it to get into the property where we wanted the recreation complex to go. Obviously things have changed. I think one of there's two main factors, I think, that we didn't stay with that location. One, the town didn't own the land at that end of the road, so we would have had to invest in acquiring some of that land. And the other piece is where we were looking at, there was a lot of wetland there, and so it turns out most of the area where we had sort of envisioned this building going was not really land that could be used for anything like this anyway. So it made more sense to just put it down by Mill Creek. We already own that land anyway, and further to the points of supporting an existing recreation asset in the town of Riverview, it just made sense to put it there. So,
Okay. So we mentioned the timeline, the history. We've been talking about this for almost a decade.
yeah.
Is that a normal time span? Why has it been this long to get to, where things stand right now?
That has certainly been a critique that I have heard of this project, is that it has taken a long time. In my mind, because we're a government and because we're dealing with taxpayer dollars, we have to be 100% sure that this is going to be a worthwhile investment. We have to make sure that we're using taxpayer dollars in the right way. So we had to go through a process of doing a feasibility study. We had to do a lot of research into what was going to work and what couldn't. I won't name names, but our committee looked at other communities where they didn't necessarily go through that process, and those buildings are really suffering, and it's become too much of a financial burden on some of those communities. So, there's a risk in not doing this the right way, and so we had to make sure we followed the appropriate steps. And unfortunately, that did mean that it's taken us, 9 years now that we've been talking about this, and we're not even going to break ground until 22, I believe it is. So that'll be, like you said, that'll be a decade by the time we break ground. But when we put that shovel in the ground, we'll know we've done everything the right way. We've consulted with the user groups. We've done the feasibility study. We've gone through all of the appropriate channels and taken the right steps to make sure that this is going to be a successful project for the town, at least as certain as we possibly can be. Taking on something of this magnitude, it's a responsibility that I'm sure council would agree with me. It's a responsibility that we have not taken lightly, and we know that this could mean so many positive things for the town of Riverview. But we know we had to get it right as well, and rushing things would not have helped us in that situation. Mm-hmm. And so I'm looking forward to it getting done and for us to break ground. And I'm confident in the process that we went through, because I can confidently tell you as a resident that we did everything we could to protect your taxpayer money, and to invest it the proper way.
Okay, so 2022.
Yeah.
What's happening now? Is there anything happening at this moment with the project?
Absolutely, yeah. So they're in a fundraising stage right now. So we had a steering committee that was chaired by Lawrence Forbes, and he and the committee did really good work. Now we're in the fundraising stage, and we have David Ford, who is chairing the fundraising committee. And so I think there's going to be some more announcements that come out early in 2021, maybe late 2020, but I'm not sure the exact timeline on that one. But they're in the process of putting together some of the fundraising initiatives right now. And there'll be more of a public fundraising campaign that starts up here in the next little while. Residents have an opportunity to contribute that if you want to, of course. We're looking for any corporate or business donors that want to get involved as well. So, in terms of funding this project, like I mentioned, we're looking for the $10 million from each of the province and the federal governments. We know the municipality is going to have to put in a portion, and then we're also looking to try and fundraise $2 million to go into the costs. And so that's the phase we're at right now, is trying to raise some money. And then we're off to the next. We haven't gone to tender for anything yet. Like that's not where we are just yet. But it's starting to move now.
Okay. Is there anything else about the project we haven't touched on that you feel is worth pointing out? I mean, like I said at the beginning, residents are probably hearing about this but don't know much about it. So is there anything else you want to tell them now?
So this is a really exciting project. I'm really proud of this one. I'm proud of the committee and all the people who worked really hard on it. I think a lot of great work has gone into this particular project, and I think the payoff is going to be really good for the town of Riverview, because it could lead to other opportunities as well. This is one of those things, right back to our first episode when we talked about new developments like what Cordova is doing, and then Bridgedale Boulevard, and now this one. I think there's some really great things happening in our town of Riverview, and we're starting to position ourselves really well to be able to manage some of that growth that we're starting to see, and to be able to keep our municipality sustainable as we move forward. And I got to give all the kudos in the world to our staff for how hard they've worked on this project, and for the great work that they've done to see us through.
Awesome. Well, that is our third episode of Town Talk. Thank you again for watching. We really appreciate it. We want to hear more of your feedback. You can drop us an email, hit us up on social media. Please follow and share these videos. We want to try to engage with as many people as we can.
Thanks for watching Town Talk, everybody.